Welcome to the Healthy Metal Hippie podcast, where art and wellness collide. Well, hi and welcome back to the Healthy Metal Hippie. Today we're talking about mums. Mother's Day may have come and gone since we're recording this, but today is all about mums, career mums, working mums, and how we have the expectation as a society generally that mums that work seem to, in society, carry less value, or that they're ruining their lives when they have children and start a family. So, for a little bit of context, I saw recently that Nita Strauss and her husband Josh just had their beautiful baby boy, Maxwell, and I'm over the moon for them. Since it was announced, it's just been so exciting to hear the updates and everything. And I think about so many people who have made comments, not necessarily about Nita, of course, but that have made comments, especially about women in music, in my world at least, that once they've had children, they are destroying their entire lives. And I think that couldn't be further from the truth. I've heard people talk about women get pregnant, musicians get pregnant, and they ruin their value. They throw their career out. They don't have a chance. Unfortunately, I've heard these kind of sentiments from far too many people. And it gives me the big ick. And I find it really, really heartbreaking to listen to it. I, as we know, am not a musician, but I am a mom. And so in some ways I have dealt with a lot of the same discrimination. I had weird mixed reactions when I had my son back in 2011. At work, there was that, it's great, get it done now, put your career on hold, and then you'll have all this time to grow. Or there was she's basically useless now, she's got a kid, or she's pregnant, she's basically done for now, and kind of feeling discarded in that way. I also remember when I was interviewing for jobs in the UK when I was still working in insurance, and how many times that it was asked, and I'm pretty sure it's illegal here too, but how many times I was asked, oh, so you're not planning on having any more children, are you? Because, I gotta be politically correct, but and I'd say, no, I'm not planning on having any more children, which was true. It's been true since I had my son, but it was almost this kind of shame put upon you, either for having kids or for, people that wanted more than one. They'd systemically stop your career progression, or they'd, there would be little blocks put in place. There's a balance, okay? So you would have that they can't do this thing because there's a child, and some of that realities, obviously there can be restrictions with children in school or just childcare in general. And in my situation, yes, as a single mom, but men don't seem to be subjected to the same level of scrutiny. Nobody goes, ooh, well, he's a dad now, so, sounds like his career's over. Or, ooh, now he's a dad. He's got no value left. He's never going anywhere now. Kiss his life goodbye because he's a dad. Nobody ever says that. Even if the setup ends up being that dad decides to be a stay-at-home dad, for example, nobody ever says that. Everybody goes, wow, what a brave effort. What an incredible guy. And that's not, and you know what? Being a stay-at-home mom or dad is like, it's a big feat. I'm not really, I have no issue with it either way. What I have an issue with is when we're having these limitations forced upon us, or people's stupid ideas of like, oh yeah, well, just their careers in music's just starting to take off, and now they're screwed. Well, that's, it's not the way it works. You can absolutely choose to change things up, or maybe you don't go back to it in the same way, or maybe you do. But I remember reading Dave Grohl's book. Really, really loved that book. But where he was talking about, having the kids on tour with him, flying back and forth around the world just to be with them. There's a reason that, and I understand being more of an established artist than people are going out, or people that are starting out. But the thing is, you make it work however you have to. And that's just is part of being a parent. You do anything that you need to do to make your family life work, however you've structured it yourself, right? There's a lot of really cool women in rock lately that have had children. And, and fairly recently, well, we think Kiki Wong, we love her, right? And now she's with the Smashing Pumpkins and playing guitar for them. Like, that's crazy. And she has a baby. But there's all these people that say it's career suicide, yet she's out there proving that that is not the case. It doesn't have to be. I wonder where these ideas come from, or I wonder if it is in general just people almost like hypersexualizing celebrities more than they already are, or maybe it's just people hating women to start with. Maybe. Which is pretty darn sad for people who claim to love women. I guess when my son was young, I was lucky that I could ask for help if I needed to go on a business trip. And I made sure to put myself forward. I did not want anything to stop the growth of my career. I never wanted anything to stop my forward progression in life. And it's so, I can look back. There's a few business trips that I had to take, and, my mom and my stepdad would take my son for the weekend or whatever it was. I had to go for award ceremonies or insurance thingies and all sorts of stuff, or different conferences. And it was, and I'm lucky I have that, because I appreciate that not everybody did. Obviously didn't really have that once I moved to England, but I remember as well, I was taking a whole bunch of insurance designations, and I think I was taking 3 at one point at the same time. And every weekend was just mass studying and reading and all these kinds of things, and exam prep and doing assignments and blah, 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 blah. And it was so great because I was able just to be like, hey, Q, take my son for the day and I'll pick him up at dinner, but that way I can get all my stuff done. And that was really, really helpful. But over time, I think people are learning more and more that you do not mess with a determined woman. You don't. Whether they are with children or without children, single or married, we don't mess with determined women. Women in general. And I think you'll find out that most women are a hell of a lot more determined than you think that they are off the bat. So like I say, I've seen a lot of musicians have children, continue to do great things, whether they are newer or they are established. Starting a family doesn't have to mean the end of everything. So, have you met people like this in your life before, where they seem to believe that a family equals career death. I'm so curious. And what do you say to them? How do you combat this in your day-to-day life? And I think for me, it's been very blunt. Just, I don't buy into that school of thought. I don't believe that having children has to hinder anything that you're doing. I think having children can actually be a great asset. I don't want to call them an asset, but I think children can be actually great to further everything that you're doing, further your understanding of life and the reason and doing the things that make you light up and feel excited, feel determined, and want to grow. Because I think especially after you become a parent, you have more of a sense of purpose than you might have even felt before. And again, I'm not one of these people saying kids are for everybody, because they're absolutely not. I was actually just featured in a magazine just this week, actually, that I'm recording it, talking about why I'm happy that I was a younger mom. I had my son when I was 24, and I am so happy, but I don't want any more kids. And it's always been that way. And I was always indifferent, really, about starting a family. I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer, but I don't for 1 second believe that just because you have started a family, that it is the end of your career. Have you been made to feel like that before? Do you know people who feel like that? I am curious. Let me know how you feel. What do you think about this topic? And I'm just going to say, way to go, moms and dads, following their dreams and doing all the parenting. Proud of you. Thanks so much for joining us on the Healthy Metal Hippie podcast. For more ways to connect, go to www.healthymetalhippie.com.